Hey everyone, Connor here from the Daubers, and as I look at all the Godzilla characters from the recent Challenger series, I want to have a look at seeing if we can make a unique deck from all three symbols for each of the characters. So I'm going to start off with Godzilla. He's got Chaos, Earth, and Water. So knowing me, obviously, we're going to start with Earth. That's going to be the first deck we look at. And yeah, we're just going to dive straight on into it. So Godzilla King of the Monsters is a 6-hand sized character with 34 health. He's got static text saying your attacks with printed difficulty 5 or greater get plus 3 damage. Enhance is spend 1 momentum. Your next check to play an attack or block gets plus 2. And he's got a form once per game. Commit, discard 4 cards, destroy all foundations. It's only playable if there's 10 or more foundations in all stages combined. So overall, I actually think Godzilla's a really, really all-round character. We're getting that plus 3 damage on their attacks because, let's be honest, we're not really going to throw that static away. You know, we will be playing difficulty 5 or greater. We have a really cool enhance that allows us, once we start getting momentum, to be able to improve the checks to play longer strings of attacks, but also to build up blocks as well. Like, there is some usability to that on a defensive end, which is really good. And then the first form, very subjective, but in that moment of need, you know, your opponent might be ahead on you by foundations. They might just have inherently too many defensive foundations in play, and you might just want the reset. All three of his things right there just make him all round. You know, we've got the offense, we've got the offense defense, and we've got a board reset, you know, like everything a character could want. And he's 6-hand size with a chunky 34 health. We're going in straight into the attacks. So we have 5 different attacks. We're running 4 copies of each for a total of 20 attacks. And we're going to just look at the first one, Destructive Slam. So obviously it's a 5 diff, it's 4 mid for 5, so it's going to get that bonus 3 damage. And it's got Throw. We're going to see we're going to see the theme here. And it's got Response. After this attack deals 7 or more damage, your rival destroys a foundation. So Throw is going to be the theme of this deck. I wanted to see if we could make Throwzilla and see how well it works out. So the response on this is actually also useful. The speed isn't too slow, it's not too fast, it's just a nice speed. We know that even if they block it, we're dealing damage. And if we go this attack further into a string and they can't block, you know, and it does do the 7 or more damage, they're going to have to blow up a foundation. They're losing a foundation for this doing big damage. I think this card is actually a really good throw in most decks as well. Next attack we're running up with is Aura Slam. 3 mid for 5, but the enhance is where I like it the most. If this attack is blocked, build the top card of your deck face down committed. I just like the idea that we're going to get a free resource for them probably having to block this because it's 8 damage. Let's be honest, most people are going to really not want to be taking the damage off of these attacks because they will inevitably hit 0 way faster than they should. So this is just allowing us a free resource. We're still probably going to do maybe 4-ish damage, you know. The stuff is still happening there, and it's going to go to momentum, allow us in a future turn to continue doing stuff. That's just all round cool attack in this deck. Next one is my favourite card in this deck, which is Fat Grapple. Simply down to the fact it starts off as a 2 mid for 1 damage. It just sounds incredibly weak until we get to the enhances and the Godzilla part. So obviously Godzilla's now making it 4 damage. And then it's also got this enhance that says this attack gets plus 1 damage for each ready foundation in your stage, maximum of 7. So if we can max this out on entry, this could be a 2 mid for 11. Like, it's just so silly. It's just such a silly. Obviously, it's got throw. It's also got a really cool deadlock enhance as well, which is your next attack is plus 5 speed. So if they have to build into deadlock for whatever reason, you know, being able to say, like, cool, our next attack's going to get plus 5 speed, a lot of these attacks now become really quite tough to block. Next attack we have is Trap Flex, 3 mid for 5, taunt and throw. Enhance, if you have fewer foundations than your rival, this attack is plus 2 damage. So this one is also another one of those ones that's getting the 3 damage from Godzilla to make it up to 8 damage. And if it's played early enough, and we are behind on foundations even just by 1, getting that extra 2 damage. So the idea of this one is we're still getting the extra damage from Godzilla, which makes it a threat of an attack anyway. It's at 8 damage straight off the board. So the opponent has to start looking at doing stuff in this form. And if they're a little bit ahead of us, it's now up to 10 damage. This attack's just kind of silly. It kind of just allows us to, like, at certain moments of the game, play it out pretty well. And again, throw, so it's always going to be loved. The last one's probably my least favourite. simply down to the fact that the enhance is kind of dead. We're really just here for the throw. So Creeping Vine Eruption. We're running 4 of them. It's a 2 low for 5. It's still got crazy damage though. Let's not throw that out the window right away. But the enhance on it is if this attack deals 5 or less damage. No, less than 5 damage, sorry. Add 1 copy of Faith Shields from your discard pile to your hand. I've actually not put Faith Shields in this deck. It doesn't really work with the game plan of what I want to do, and I don't really want floating 4 checks kicking about my deck. I like the idea that I think everything's like a 5 or a 3. The attack package is pretty much what available throws we had, and it turns out we have enough to actively run this as a style of a deck. So from there, what we're going to now do is jump into the actions. Let's start off with City Rampage. We're running 4 copies of it. While this card's in your card pool, your attacks get +1 speed and +1 damage. The form in order to get it there, your checks to play attacks with printed difficulty 5 or greater, i.e. all our attacks, get +2 for the rest of the turn. The idea of being able to check 2 attacks into the pool without having to commit a single foundation potentially is also really good. Even then, if we on the first attack check a 3, like all we're doing is committing a foundation as well. So we're playing something in on a 6, checking a 3. Usually that's meant to be disgusting. Usually that's meant to be, oh, I've got to commit 3 on the first opening play. This says no. This says you're fine. Let's keep going. So this obviously, as I say, +1/+1. It means that with Godzilla, everything's coming out at +1 speed, +4 damage. As a throw deck, this is just amazing. We love extra little bits of damage. So card's amazing. We're running 4 of them for that reason. So the other action we're running is the Dark Tournament Looms. We're also running 4 copies of this because it plays perfectly into the game style right now. So Dark Tournament Looms says enhance, remove, add 1 card from your momentum to your hand and draw a card. So it replenishes itself and it allows us a momentum. As we're playing an all throw deck, every one of these attacks should be doing some form of damage and going to momentum, which means we have abilities to pick them straight back up and just continue attacking again. The idea here is like we kind of want this game to not go too long because we're just going to be doing consistent damage even when they block. Right, next on up, we're going to go down to the foundations where I have went super smooth brain. Now, there could be alterations to this, but I've went super smooth brain for a reason. We have 3 things we're looking at on a foundation, right? The foundation is either going to say minus damage to our opponent's attack, draw a card, or give us damage. So when we go through these, that's pretty much the 3 conditions of why these cards are in the deck. So, starting off with the 0 diffs. So Tough Skin is just enhanced flip, this attack gets -1 damage. I'm running 2 of them. It's nothing super special, but it fills out a bracket and also helped with the high blocks as well. And again, -1 damage just might make things a wee bit easier to take, overall. So I put 2 of them in the deck. You could argue for more, but I've kind of wanted to keep this deck to 60 for this reason, and it kind of seems to work pretty well. Warm and Bubbly we're running 4 of. It kind of does what Tough Skin does, but slightly better, but there's a kind of stagger effect to it. So for Warm and Bubbly's enhance, it's flip. If you've taken damage this turn, this attack gets -2 damage. So this one's only really going to prop on the second onwards of attack. So that's the kind of idea where Tough Skin comes in. We can kind of lower some damage a little bit. We don't have to worry about the kind of opening poke. Then we can completely turn off a potential second attack. So yeah, they're some of our minus damage scenarios. Coming up next, we're going to roll with the 3 draw scenarios that we have. So the first is all 3 of them are 1 diffs. So the first one is Ferocious Attacker. The Ferocious Attacker is flip. If your rival has lost health this turn, draw 1 card. The idea here is after the first attack does some form of damage, the second attack's going to allow us to draw. The next one is 4 copies of Fearsome Transformation, which is enhance flip, draw 1 card. If you've no momentum, you discard 1 card. So the idea again with this one is we're getting that draw after the first round. After the first round of attacks, we should have momentum, so we don't have to worry about the discard. So we're getting the draw there. And the last one, probably the obvious one that most people will know of, is 4 copies of Chivalrous Competitor. So this one is flip, both players draw a card. So we are giving our opponent a card for the sake of us getting an automatic draw, which I think is a good trade-off. And the last 1 diff that we have, Red Riot's the coolest. So Red Riot's the coolest is actually a really, really good card in this deck. For one big reason on the enhance. We don't care about the deadlock enhance, just the enhance. Flip. This attack is +2 damage, and it's playable well committed. It's playable well committed, so it's one of those ones that we don't even have to think about it, and we just commit that one for cost all the time until we flip it, and it's 2 damage on top of that scenario. So the idea there is you can play this out for the sake of knowing what you're committing. You're going to get extra damage on our throws. So easy smooth brain mode. Now we're also running two diff foundations. So the first one is probably my favourite foundation, which is Titanic Combat. So this one, again, formulates into the idea of giving us damage. So it enhances the main bit we're looking at, which is your attack, commit. This attack gets 2 damage, so we love that. And your rival also commits a foundation. So the idea of getting these out, being able to commit this one to force them to also commit, but we're also getting damage on our throws, is just awesome. This card is just silly. I'm actually amazed how good this card is. It goes in so many decks that are on symbol. The response is commit. After you take damage from an unblocked attack, you build the top card of your deck face down committed. So the idea here is, like, if there's attacks that we can say warm and bubbly to the fact they're no damaging is too much, we can just take that damage and we get a build out of it. So it's kind of similar to the way the attack previously, Aura Slam is. We're getting some level of build for the sake of stuff happening, which is just going to give us extra resources for following turns. So, awesome card. The other 2 diff we're running is Prehensile Tail. We're running 3 copies of this as well. So the Titanic Combat had 4 copies, this has 3 copies. This one is also kind of similar to why a lot of stuff flips. So the enhance on this one is if you have 4 or more face downs, including this one when it flips, add 1 momentum to your hand, or your rival discards 1 momentum. So the idea here is we might not always see Dark Tournament Looms, for instance, but having these in play is going to allow us to pick up that momentum and pick up our attacks for the next turn. So that card's awesome. It should almost always be activated as well because everything essentially flips. So pretty much nothing in this deck doesn't flip. So the idea of us not being at that stage of having 4 or more as such is kind of like a very slim chance that's going to happen. Also, if the opponent builds into Deadlock, we do have another additional Deadlock enhance that's actually useful, which is commit your kick, punch, or slam. We have 2 slams in the deck, get +3 damage, and again throw, lol, but we've already got throw. But the idea of getting an additional 3 damage here, just on a commit, is also useful. So it does a little bit of everything, which we love. You know, mainly the idea is picking up the momentum to allow us to continue attack strengths. The last foundation we run 3 diffs, which is unmatched power. So this one, it kind of just fills itself out. The first enhance says you remove it. This attack gets +X damage. X equals its printed difficulty. Everything set is printed difficulty 5. This just says remove for 5 damage. The idea here being obviously if we go in for a good attack run, at the last couple, obviously it's a first enhance, so you're only getting to use one of them. It's not unique written, so you can have them all out and just pop these on like every single attack for an extra 5 damage. At some point, you're just going to force so much damage onto attacks, especially the ones at the end that they can't block, that you're just going to hit and probably end up winning the game. So that is Godzilla, King of the Monsters on Earth. So I hope everyone likes this. One of the things I will mention before I go is I don't typically add sideboards immediately when it comes to these kind of deck profiles for one big reason. Typically, like when I'm building a sideboard, I'm building it with like the Scottish meta in mind if I ever do build a sideboard. And I'll be honest with you, our meta changes every single week, so it always feels as if like that sideboard, by the time I put this out, will probably have changed. So what I like the idea with the sideboard is, what sideboards would you utilise into this deck? Put it in the comments below. I'd like to see what kind of cards you would add to the deck, what cards you would take out, and just generally see what kind of like overall changes you would get to this deck if you ended up wanting to play it. But yeah, thank you very much everyone for watching, guys. The next time we're putting out a video will be Godzilla on the Chaos symbol. And yeah, I'll see you then. Bye everyone.